Hello everyone, I'm Mishmash, back again with my little friend Hodgepodge, and today we're going to do an episode all about blood and gore, and all that kind of painting stuff, very violent stuff. We got a great show for you. Holy shit! Hi. What's up?
Well, I heard you's the one I'm supposed to go to get my axe all decorated nice and scarlet. Ain't it right quick? Things looking all shiny and new. I ain't got any character to it.
Yeah, I'm sure I could do that. I mean, yeah.
So we're gonna be mucking around, spending all the time flapping your weird little muppet face. Or we're gonna get my love looking nice and spiffy. Just paint his axe, man. I don't want no trouble.
I would also like you to adorn my instrument of death with the glorious paint of my fallen enemies. If not your brushes, then with your own squishy, zealous juices.
Hey, like I said, I think we can do that. It can be arranged. I was just about to do a video on it, so let's just get right into it. Alright, method 1. This is tried and true. I'm sure you've seen this method before, but we're going to put my own little spin on it. We're going to be using 4 paints and a brush just like this. And the one on the far right is my own mixture of all these paints. So to start out, we're going to be using Blood for the Blood God. And you're just going to be stabbing at the weapon like so. I'm sure you've seen this before, especially if you've been into painting before. This is nothing new, but I would do it just like this. And now we're going to mix a little bit of that black ink with our Blood for the Blood God. And we're going to use the airbrush and we're going to spray it directly at the weapon. Especially for weapons like this, chain weapons, you're going to want to have a little bit of blood splatter directly on the miniature, just like so. And less is more, I will say that. And next we're going to be using typhus corrosion, mixed with our Blood for the Blood God, and use a good amount of water. You're going to want it watery, and this is for the effect of old blood. We can also place it on the weapon as a underlayer, but we will be spraying this on the miniature later. And make sure you don't do what I'm doing here. As in, make sure you have both sides coated equally before doing this. And we're going to apply just a little bit more on the weapon, just more random splatters. It'll make it look a little bit more realistic. And again, we're going to be using that airbrush, spray it from a little far away. And make sure that you get it about where the weapon would be. And next, we're going to use the classic method of just using a toothpick or a Q-tip like I'm using right now, just for a little extra. And while it's still wet, you can use a nice detail brush to dilute it, make it run down a little bit more, and just make it look a little bit more sparing on the miniature. Big globs typically don't look very good, in my opinion. And as one little step, just for this miniature specifically, as this weapon is 3D printed, I'm going to use a little typhus corrosion to correct that small little indent, and we're going to put a little bit of Blood for the Blood God over it. Especially over typhus corrosion, it'll look pretty natural. But for the most part, just try to make your miniatures print better.
Perfect. I smell like old pennies.
Alrighty, part 2. Now this method I have learned myself through an accident. We're going to be using a Space Marine, circuit board wire, and a little bit of sponge. So first you're going to take this circuit board wire and make slight cuts into it, just like you would with entrails. Charming, right? And once you've made those little cuts, you're going to bend it to shape however you like. I usually go for the classic loop. And that's typically what you can do with these. There's only so much you can bend. And I would cut these pretty evenly. Circuit board wire can be a little bit fidgety, but you can get some amazing results. And to tie this all together, use your stringiest glue you can find. I'm using Army Painter's Super Glue after I left it out in the open for a little while. And you can get some pretty cool strings. And to tie it all together, we're going to be using a little bit of sponge. But I will warn you now, this miniature didn't exactly turn out the way that I was hoping for. But this is a good example as the start. Once I applied my contrast paints, I kind of realized I didn't like how this guy looked. But still, in this stage, we can still learn some good things. I seriously hate this thing. So we started over, and I used a brand new marine and primed it in whatever color you like. I just did the zenithal color. And make sure you get a nice little thing right here, a nice little piece of cork for an eyeball. And that's where we'll paint his entrails. So paint up the marine however you wish. I just went for whatever the hell this is supposed to be. So we're going to start this out with some typhus corrosion. Love this color. And we're going to put this all over where the blood is going to start and where it will be. I think this provides a great texture and a great base color to gore in general. It's a nice warm shade, and that grittiness, like I said, provides just an excellent texture to start us out. So we're going to apply this all over in these areas. Next, we're going to use Cadian flesh tone, and we're going to put this all over the entrails. Just a nice fleshy color to start us out. And make sure you try to get in all the nooks and crannies you can. And it's okay if you need to do 2 thin coats. That's what you're supposed to do. But make sure that it is evenly placed all over. This will be the starting color, and we will blend this a little bit with some of our other colors later on. Next, we're using our Blood for the Blood God once more. And we're going to apply this to any little parts that we're going to use our stringy glue. This is just a nice little base coat. We're going to put over more a little bit later, but just make sure you get it in all over the typhus corrosion. Any little spots you can find. Try not to let too much of the typhus corrosion show through, but it is our base color. And like I said before, less is more. Unless you're doing what I'm doing here and going absolutely crazy with it. Paint what you like, I'm not your mother. Next, we're going to take some contrast medium mixed heavily with magos purple, and we're going to put it all over the intestines. Then we're going to take our airbrush again and use the same method we used earlier and spray more blood about where the head would have exploded. Again, very charming. Make sure you get it all over the armor, a nice little speckling. Not too much, but enough to look realistic. Next, we're going to take Cadian flesh tone mixed with a good amount of Blood for the Blood God. We're going to use this pinkish mixture to highlight over the skull and to create little bits of brain. Delicious. And once that's done, we're going to use Ghost Gray, and we're going to paint over our eyeball. Now use a good amount of this, and you're going to want to mix just a little bit right on the socket, and mix it with Blood for the Blood God to create a nice pink effect. Similar to the brain, but a little bit more bloody. And on top of this, being that it's made out of cork, you're going to get kind of a bloodshot effect. And don't be afraid to clean up just a little bit. We're going to use Deathcorp Drab, and we're going to paint the iris of this eyeball. Now, I didn't film painting the pupil, as that was a lot more difficult than it needed to be. But like any other eyeball, just paint a nice little dot of abaddon black right in the middle. And again, don't be afraid to clean up. This is a long process, and painting eyes is never easy, no matter how much they are popped out of someone's skull. And shocker, as a final step, you're going to be adding more blood for the blood god all over the intestines and around where the wound was inflicted. And once you've completed this, you are done. Now, I would ultimately add a little bit more to the base. You can do as you please. I did kind of a pre-base with this. This technically isn't the final result, but I think this looks incredible, and all it takes is some household supplies. So this is by far my favorite of these three methods. Not that there's anyone better than the others, but this last one is a little weird, so stay tuned. Yeah, I told you it was a little weird. This is a nail Dremel, and this is what I used to drill the hole into the Space Marine for the first part using the intestines. But you can also use a piece of Q-tip and some blood for the blood god, and you can make some pretty realistic effects with this. Though at the pitfall of it sounding absolutely hilarious while you do it. I don't know if it's really a pitfall, but it's up to you. Hey, and it's all good. I love to do it. It's what I do. Glad you appreciate it. Whew. Okay. Thank you very much for watching. I apologize for the interruption earlier, but this video was a lot of fun to make, and I'm really glad that I'm able to do this again. And I really hope to see you guys next time. Mishmash, Kitbash, and check out the Instagram, Mishmash Painting on Instagram. Hey, blah, blah, blah.
Instead of just making a better catchphrase, you just plug your Instagram. You're already a sellout.
No.